Hello everyone, it's Luke McTaggart here, one half of Dovecote Street Arts, the other half being Jim, who's behind the camera. We tried this last time when we had our Rooted exhibition 2 years ago, where we did an online presentation of the work, a kind of guided tour. All of the almost 70 artworks on display by about 47, 48 if you can include me, artists from across Northumberland, as far south as Newcastle, far north as Wooler, but largely from our Coquet catchment, you might want to call it. A lot of the artists that you'll know from our regular crypt programme that we run here at the Dovecote Centre. So if you start at this wall, this was actually, we found this the most difficult wall to hang, and it's our kind of coastal blues, yellows and oranges, a lot of twilight scenes in this wall. So if you move along this wall from left to right, I'm going to talk through and they'll be interspersed with tracking shots that you can see. We've got a piece from Deborah Burt here, paired with Linda Gaskell, Angela Hodges and Bill Waters, and they're all tackling different aspects of the coast. So you've got this very interesting piece here by Debbie, which is a discarded shopping trolley on the beach that she's found, and you've got Coquet Island in the distance there, it's full of rocks. Linda Gaskell tackling a very well-known view looking across the estuary in Amble towards Warkworth with the coal staiths in front, and the old pier as we would call it, and Warkworth Castle on the horizon. Nice expressive brushwork. You've got a very quiet, very peaceful watercolour painting by Angie Hodges. Any of you who come to the crits will know Angie. Very beautifully, done, very spare. Really interesting how she's framing the horizon with that portrait format. It's almost sort of slices and bands of colour. Nice piece here from Bill Waters, like I say, of it's the old ship in Newbiggin. Some of you might recognise it in watercolour. Very nice, expressive, loose washes with dashes of gouache on for the highlights and the frames of the windows. It's called The Demise of the Pub. So again, when we put this exhibition together, what we asked to do, and as I'm going to keep bringing in as I go around the works, we asked people to respond to how they thought that national themes presented themselves in local communities. Very wide open. We didn't quite know how that would work, but sometimes it's quite good to go with a very top line prompt and just see what happens. So some artists have tackled that very head on, some artists have sort of meandered around it, some artists have just put the work in anyway, but it's really kind of left very broad sort of interpretation for what the artist put in. Next is one of the prize winners. So as we were pulling the exhibition together, we thought it was fitting to offer some prizes out to works that we felt really met the brief and exceeded it. So one of the prize winners, one of the highly commended, is Carmen Gordon, and there are a few different views that kind of repeated through the exhibition of the sort of flats, as we'll see, the skyline of Amble that's kind of emerged in recent years in my lifetime. You'll see some of those, and also the Little Shores. We've got quite a few pieces of the Little Shore, which very timely has been awarded bathing water status by the Environment Agency after a long campaign by the Coquet River Action Group and the Amble Swimblers and Warkworth Harbour Commissioners, many local organisations, grassroots citizen science effort to promote the health and well-being of the local community, using it as a resource, using it for swimming in. They've been successful in getting that status, which means that it's going to be monitored by the Environment Agency, and they'll keep tabs on the water quality in there. So Carmen's tackled this view. Anybody local that goes down there regularly will recognise this shape. Carmen's called it the Heart of Amble, and the sandbar in the Little Shore where the sand collects and sort of as this constantly shifting shoreline, she's depicted this really nice, capturing all these sorts of layers in the sand, so you end up with these sort of the wisps of black or the sea coal, all of these different shades that you find in the sand, along with the bay view and the old Coast Guard cottages here on the horizon. Very nice, broad, confident brush strokes. We just thought it was a piece with a lot of impact. And then we come to this group here. It was one of mine in the middle, and these are again various various takes on different aspects of the local coastline and sort of recognisable features. So again, another painting of the Little Shore by Rose Warwick. Rose is one of the swimblers that I mentioned, you know, one of the groups that were involved that used the Little Shore. She swims in the Little Shore, and she's done this beautiful little painting here. Sally Howarth, I know a lot of you will know Sally and her blue mannequins from the crits that we run. She's got very interested in the water tower at Broom Hill, a very well-known local landmark, so she's done this photographic print that she's presented. Barbara Cuthbert here for the Walk with Art group, she's done this lovely watercolour. Again, there's that skyline creeping in. Ali Rowland, a local writer, done a lot of collaborations through projects we've done. The Amble Writers Group she's an active member of. She's just got a new book out with Jim, Coquet Tales Volume 1. And Ali's presented this piece here, and it's called It's Usually Peaceful and Calm, but sometimes things can spill over, so it's sort of red in this motion here. Combination of this is card with a pen drawing on it, and then there's stitching here, which is obviously based on Hockarsai's Wave, with this photograph that she's used mounted on denim. So it's kind of a mixed media piece with elements of textile, and anybody that doesn't pick up on it, this is actually the area of the breakwater which was vandalised, I think last year, with the Stop the Boats graffiti. So she's kind of commenting on how these national themes, these undercurrents of national politics sort of surface in our communities, and she's turned it into a haiku, I think it's called, of a combination between a haiku and an image. And then we've got two pieces here on the bottom by Lorraine Dukeman, another regular fixture of our crit events. So a lot of you will know Lorraine's work. She's been active in Amble quite a lot, works between Amble and Bute. She's got 3 pieces in the exhibition, as I say. These are 2 smaller pieces, and they're both called What Goes Around Comes Around. This is What Goes Around Comes Around 1, and this is What Goes Around Comes Around 2. So this one's based on the actual lighthouse fitting in Coquet Island, on the lighthouse there. So it's the Coquet Optic is what she called that, and they're small pen and ink drawings. And then here, this is based on the tank traps that mark regular. Then we see some of the other examples of tank traps as a kind of local feature on our coastline. She's got some tank traps here on the beach, which have just become a real kind of just second nature to walk across them and navigate them when you're on the beach, but obviously linking back to the wartime. And then we've got another piece from Angie up here. This is Wartworth Castle from Amble Quay. Beautiful, again, a very recognisable local scene, but treated with a real kind of deftness and a delicacy that Angie's known for. You know, with her watercolours, she treats things very, very delicately, but actually her images have got a real strength underlying that. So I love the little bit of light that's just that you see so often on the coastline, because we're on the coastal plain, and we're lucky in Amble because we get the sun rising over the sea on the east coast, and then we also get the sun setting over the estuary looking back to the west, and I think Angie's captured that really well with those again, the delicate veils of the watercolour, but actually building it into a very, very strong image with a lot of impact that kind of slowly unfolds. Sean Smith, again, somebody else comes to the crits, and the Howick Art Group, you'll know Sean if you've attended any of those. This piece, I didn't quite pick up on this to begin with, but I liked it when she told me about it. It's called Better Together, and it's the coast Warkworth Beach. And there's one figure with a black and white top on, and another figure with a red and white top on, and the Newcastle and Sunderland fans. So I thought that was a very charming piece there, commenting on football rivalry. And then this is one of mine in the middle. I've got 2 pieces in. This is a recent piece. I was really taken by, I'm very interested in reflections in my work, so this is just a reference photo. I keep a stack of reference photos in my studio, and I was leafing through it one day and I found this photograph of the estuary, again looking west at dusk, these kind of very dominant floodlights that you see around the harbour, and again that sort of emerging new Amble skyline of the apartments there. But I was really drawn to I called the ink blot sky, because I was very drawn to the way that this was almost like a Rorschach test. This sort of like when you're at school, you might sort of smear some paint on a page, fold it in half, and it kind of makes a butterfly or something like that. I was very drawn to those quite stark forms, and the way that the things get reflected, and the way that the reflections are quite often, if you paint them exactly the way they are, they do have a kind of surreal quality to them. So that was what came about in that piece. So these three pieces here mark the end of this, like I say, this coastal twilight kind of wall. This is a pastel piece by Becky McMurray. Some of you will know Becky from her sort of textile creations, the bears that she's presented at our crits. But this is a fantastic drawing. It's called Monster. And it might not be immediately clear whilst it, when you first look at this piece, because it is a fabulous, I don't know, I think it's probably a dawn sky, because I guess that I think it's Warkworth based on my conversations with Becky. I think this is Warkworth Beach, and you get obviously the sun coming up in the east, so it's got some fabulous, nice dynamic drawing in there with pastels. But the closer you look, you actually notice a can of Monster energy drink. Other energy drinks are available, but it's obviously Becky commenting on things like littering, the sort of carelessness of people that discarded their waste and spoil these beautiful views by leaving their detritus out in the landscape. And it was very pertinent because when Becky dropped this work off, I was cycling home after we'd been receiving all the artworks and beginning with the exhibition. I was cycling home, and there on the verge I noticed a can of Monster energy drink. It was green, not red, but I just thought it went to show that it's very commonplace to see litter, and I know it's a kind of very small, very trite thing, but actually the volume of litter, as we've seen through some of the other presentations at our crits, is a very very pertinent topic. And this is one of Jim's. This is Jim's photograph here, and it's a pinhole camera piece, fitting that I think he's got for his phone, but it's actually printed on watercolour paper, and I think that harks back to a sort of undercurrent that's always running through Jim's work, which is treating cameras like paintbrushes. So very, very early photographers saw photography as another form of painting. So that's always an undercurrent in Jim's work, is the blurring of the lines between painting and photography, and trying to get those painterly effects out of a camera. And this is another one of my pieces that was in my recent exhibition. It was the sort of poster piece for my show Between Dusk and Waking that was on at the Annick Playhouse Gallery, and it is Blackbridge, the other side of Warkworth. When you go down Watersoft Road, very top end of Warkworth, it's a hidden spot that generally only I grew up going down there. It's sort of a place that locals know of, and there's a caravan park. And I was out on my bike cycling across fields one night. I think it was sort of late August last year. I was really drawn by the sort of contrast between the natural light, the fading natural light punctuated by this sort of half moon rising, but then also the artificial light of the caravan here. I think it was a caravan porch light that had come on, and I was just always very drawn to these sort of little incidents in the landscape, and just the way that the light catches fences and things like that. So that's that piece. So we're now onto the longest wall in the gallery space that we've got here at the Dovecote Centre. This is the kind of feature wall that I'm going to talk through. And starting at this end, this has been very interesting to hear people's responses to this piece. It's called A Small Place, a Heavy Sea, and it's by Lynn Fordham. And it's really interesting because it's a combination, it's a decoupage, so it's a combination of collage and painting. And it shows this figure here, somebody hunched over, curled up. Quite ambiguous whether it's a male or a female figure, can't quite work it out. The figure's in monochrome, and then it's obviously surrounded by this very intense blue background. And the more you look at it, there's all these patterns of fish, a sort of kind of found patterns, like sort of hark back to wallpaper, kind of very decorative. But it's got this real kind of jarring effect that when people walk, because it's on this side of the gallery, so when people walk in and they enter the gallery space, they kind of immediately are very drawn to that one. So it's been a real standout piece from the exhibition. And it's been read in a lot of ways, kind of as to do with sort of mental health. When they're aware of a lot of the issues of living in coastal communities, the fishing industry itself, all those sorts of themes. But it certainly provoked a lot of conversations. and we're really lucky to have had that piece in the exhibition. And as well, that kind of square format really lends itself to the compression of squeezing the figure into a almost boxed in. And then we've got two pieces here from Sarah O'Dowd. I know a lot of people that have been around following different things like the Woodhorn Open exhibition will know Sarah's work. So we've got two pieces here. This one is a collage, and again we'll see the tank traps like Lorraine Dukeman's about the tank traps coming in this piece here, which is, like I said, it's collage, bits of, I think, print and sort of monoprint has been my interpretation, sort of maybe some colograph there just in terms of that intaglio sort of effect on the surface, and then in this piece it's that iconic view again with Warkworth Castle there on the horizon, the setting sun over in the west, and the old pier, those very iconic, very sort of jagged shapes that jut out of the water, constantly changing, constantly being immersed and resurfacing with the tides. Then we've got a piece from Ted Taylor. So Ted's got, a lot of you know Ted again. Ted has got two pieces in the exhibition, one abstract and one figurative. This busker, and I'm sure I've seen this guy growing up. I remember seeing this guy on the Amble market. He was a kind of regular fixture, a sort of one-man band, and it's a pen and ink drawing that Ted has done. And we quite liked it hung next to John Tuff's. So John's got two puffin drawings in the exhibition. Quite liked it hung next to this one. It was, Jim and I had a good chuckle when we were putting it together of the kind of similarities between the sort of format of the sort of orangey red legs, the white breast, and then the sort of black sort of shawl there. So it was quite charming, and yeah, we couldn't do an exhibition over the Puffin Festival weekend without having some puffins in it. You know, such an iconic feature of Amble. Amble's sort of mascot, if you like. So now we've got Ian McCarroll's piece. Anybody from Amble, you know, will recognise this as Brewis Beer, a local business on the industrial estate. Very, very popular hotspot for anybody that likes beer, and it's his family. So he worked on this painting very furiously, I think, in the lead up to the exhibition, trying to get it done. Well, what I like about it is that, for one, it's a very iconic local spot, that local business that I mentioned, but also it's got a bit of an art historical subtext that when I was speaking to Ian, he said he wanted to offer his take on Manet's Bar at Foy Bergeret, the very iconic painting by Manet with the barmaid and the mirror behind her, that kind of fabulous bustling background with the artificial lights and the oranges and everything in the foreground. So it's Ian's take on that, which I thought was brilliant. I really liked that. It was quite, and again, really a testament to the creativity of everyone that's come forward through this open call process, just coming at things from all different angles, all different variety of things, and it's been really heartening to see people pushing themselves. And Ian, I think this is the biggest painting that Ian's done. It's quite a decent sized painting, and it's been really good to see him challenge himself. And then we got the first of Marjorie Firth's paintings. Marjorie's an active member of the Howick Art Group, and she's got three really beautiful paintings. She's another one of our prize winners, and we'll come to her prize winner in a moment. And this is the first piece. Again, there are those staithes coming in, that westward view across the estuary, and it's actually got a title, and after an ending, a new beginning. That's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So it's got a sort of poetic note on that evening light. It's just captured really, really well. It's actually on board. It's oil on board, and it's got that sort of, I think through the brushwork, it's really got that sort of fleeting sense of the light that you get in the evening, because it is a very trite thing of, you know, artists and the light, capturing the light, but actually you can really see her engagement with observing the light, how that's presenting itself through the brushwork. Through the paintwork, you've got some very nice thin passages of oil with these really nice impasto areas on the top, bringing out the light, and you've got a real nice kind of juxtaposition of those different paint qualities throughout the painting. So here we're at the middle of this centre, the feature wall of the exhibition, of the longest wall in the gallery space, and bang in the centre is the overall winner. So this one top prize. I think when Jim and I were sat in Jim's office and we had the works up, we asked artists to submit one image and one image only of each artwork. And I remember the moment that we opened this image, we immediately knew that it was really something very special, something very different. It's by an artist called Andrew Holder. And it's an assemblage. So what that is, it's an assembly of found objects. And it's called Excerpts, New Amble Flood Station 2062. So what you see is there's a backing board, a piece of wood, quite thick plywood, almost like a drawing board. You know, there's bits of paint which appears to have been masked off. It's kind of being used as a painting board with pins in 3 of the 4 corners. My interpretation of it, I thought it's almost like a desk. It's like a found desk. You've got a copy of Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse, British Paleozoic fossils, bits of sea coal, stones from the beach, postcards. There's Coated Island, a kind of promontory here of a ruin along the coast. These kind of they look like old sort of science textbooks from school, drawings from those. The lighthouse that vanished. There's a kind of obscured passage from some kind of book there. Everything fixed in place as well. Nothing is just sort of happenstance. It's all been very deliberately placed and very deliberately fixed in. And I think, speaking to Andrew, I think he's very keen for people to form their own narratives. I think his underlying motivation in the piece was to pass comment on the climate crisis, climate emergency, and how in 2062, I think he's flipped 2026 around, how in 2062 the remnants of a coastal community submerged by sea level rise, what those remnants might look like. But it's been really good. We always love having a piece that is a bit sort of different. There's no getting around the fact that it is an exhibition that's dominated largely by painting. It's just usually a fact of these sorts of things. It's generally painters that submit to these. So it is lovely to have something that is quite antithetical to that. That has sparked so many conversations. You know, Jim and I have had a lot of conversations about it. We loved asking the artists when they were coming in and dropping their works off what they thought of it, and it's certainly been a real conversation starter, probably the conversation starter of the exhibition. And then underneath that is another one of Marjorie Firth's paintings, and that was the 3rd prize winner. So this was along with Carmen, that's the other highly commended artwork, and it's Changing Skyline. So as I said, we've seen a lot of paintings in the exhibition, as you've seen me show, of the flats, the apartments that mark Amble's skyline. We thought this was the best example of these paintings, and actually it's the one that avoids using that orange and teal colour palette that they're very iconically painted in. It shows them in a kind of morning haze. And we just thought it was a beautiful bit of painting. It really shows Marjorie at her best with that deftness, showing off all of these, again, these thin sort of, like almost fumey sort of layers of scumbled oil paint marked against these thicker, more impastoed areas, which really bring out the light and the sparkle that you get on the water in the morning. And I think in this shot you can see 3 of John Shields' drawings. John's an artist from Alnwick, and he moved here recently and got to know the artists in our crit group. He's presenting at quite a few of those, and we've got 3 drawings of his. 2 of them are monochrome, and this one's in colour. Early Warning at Brisley Wood, that's one of the radar domes that you see on various high points around this sort of area of the middle of Northumberland, you know, RAF Boomer and the like, as early warning radar stations, very sort of jarring white golf ball shapes, as we used to call them when we were growing up. And then these drawings, again, the tank traps coming back in, so there's a real undercurrent of that idea of the coastline as a defensive place, as a place that has to be defended. And then a really iconic image of a boat in Allenmouth on the salt marsh there. And then above that, again, we've got a kind of a trio of the flats again. A fabulous piece from Deborah Headley. Deborah's first time exhibiting. We love this mixed media piece where it's got a combination of graphite and pen and marker. And it's very charmingly called One Way, because there's a one-way system around that part of Amble. I was really drawn to this kind of halo effect almost, of kind of the glow coming from behind the flats. It's quite a wild and weird sort of eerie composition with these sort of grey streets with the lights of the houses glowing out. It's a lovely piece of drawing, and we're really pleased that Deborah exhibited this work. Janet Maloney, Janet won the Landscape Artist of the Year competition that we ran for the Puffin Festival this year. She was our winner, and we got an oil on canvas painting from her in this exhibition of that very iconic view of the harbour, another angle of the flats. It's really interesting because we had a lot of conversations about them and how they've become a sort of symbol of Amble. They were very divisive when they were first built, of very Marmite, some people love them, some people hate them, and then now they've kind of really evolved into something that's given Amble a very distinctive skyline. So it's a lovely piece, nice, quite thick. I think there might be a bit of cold wax in with the oil paint there, really nice thick impasto on that canvas there, sort of showing all of the various different shades and colour, the sort of typical harbour colour palette of the teals and the orangey coral colours with all those greys and greens and ochres. And then next to that piece is Marjorie's third and final piece. It's called Making Way for Tomorrow. Again, it's kind of showing that sort of development of that area of the harbour, and it's again that really nice sort of swooping curve. You can see it in this piece in the opposite direction, the sort of swooping curve that they make as they kind of rise up each block that's been built successively, and it's contrasted really nicely here against more traditional industry. So you've got the lobster pots here, and then a very iconic old bit of the kind of old boat shed building that's next to the RNLI lifeboat station. And then we've got the sort of end of this middle section of the wall here. We've got a piece from Gina Littler. It's Rock Pool Seaweed Harmony, I believe it's called, and it's a painting, sort of semi-abstract painting. I think a lot of people come in, and it's quite a large piece, one of the larger pieces in the exhibition. People have come in and taken one look at it, and then they've gone in closer, and then they've read the title, and then it's sort of resolved into that kind of underwater world sort of image that, when you're peering into rock pools, it takes you quite a while, depending on the weather conditions and things like that, to resolve what's actually underneath the surface, and things are always in motion, and you get a real sense of movement. And I think that piece by Gina captures it really well. I've got a fabulous painting of the Northumberland County flower from Bridget Dawson, who's done this beautiful, very quite delicate botanical painting of Bloody Cranesbill. And it's a combination of watercolour, I think a little bit of pen in it as well, with those beautiful magenta flowers of the cranesbill really being set off quite nicely against the very verdant greens of all of the leaves that she's painted in a very, very considered way. And then we've got the first of two of Neville Wilson's paintings, of prints actually, sorry. Neville is a very firm fixture of our crits. He's known and loved by everyone, and he makes photo etchings. And the first of that is, there's always an element of dry humour with Neville's pieces, and this is WC, and it's a photograph of a drain that he's then worked to turn into a photo etching. And there's quite a laboured process, that way of printmaking. I've worked with Neville on prints, and there's a lot of diligence that has to go into taking a photograph through to a finished edition. There's many hours of kind of leaving the plate, etching the plate, and treating the paper and such. So it's nice to have printmaking well represented in the exhibition as well with some of Neville's work. So here we're at the end of this long feature wall in the gallery space that we've been journeying along, seeing all the various images and artworks that people have submitted for the exhibition. I was very charmed by the sort of combination of these two pieces. So we've got a piece from Anne O'Toole, which is a mixed media piece, which is using gouache and pastel on paper, and it's this idea, I was talking to Anne about it yesterday, this idea of kind of allotments as a sacred space, as a kind of real permanent fixture, in some areas in the county, going back to medieval times, thinking of the burgage plots, in Warkworth, and especially with the kind of push for things, you know, and amongst social prescribing and things like that, being outdoors, you know, concepts of self-reliance, and growing our own food. So it does touch on quite a number of those themes, but it's also just a lovely piece in a formal sense of a lot of those beautiful muted colours that you find in allotments. But equally all those different textures of the kind of sheet metal and the wood, and that's why it links really nicely with this piece by Jeff Bradford, which is another assemblage in one of Jeff's very iconic boxes. So it's a wood construction with card over it, and then various bits of found materials that Jeff has assembled and layered over one another. So it's got that kind of sort of a sense of a window as well, because of the frame that Anne's used and the way that Jeff has boxed the actual materials in. You sort of have this sense of peering into something. And then we've got this other print from Neville, which is called Concrete and Ring Mark. So another undercurrent of Neville's work is this interest in symbology and in ways that ways that different civilizations, whether it's sort of hieroglyphics or more kind of Bronze Age communities, have used symbols to communicate things. So he's done a lot of work around cup and ring marks that we obviously have a lot of in our county. This is a concrete and ring mark, so it's a kind of modern day interpretation of that theme. And then underneath it we've got a piece from Dorothy Lamb. Dorothy needs no introduction. You will all know Dorothy. If you know who I'm talking about, you know. We've got this piece of a pillbox here, which is just up the road, and it's got an owl on it, which links very nicely with Sue Waters' piece, which I'll come to, and the ghost of a soldier. And I think with all of Dorothy's work, there's a real engagement with materials. If she really works at the paper, you can see the paper's buckled, and she's really applied lots and lots of layers and really grappled with the subject matter that she's dealing with. So it's a really lovely, very enigmatic piece, I would say. Then we see the other piece, the sort of sibling to Fish Supper by John Tuff. This is called Mouthful, and it's again that very very noteworthy mascot of the town, the puffin, with the owl peering down on it, the barn owl, by Sue Waters. It's good to have some 3D work, so it's a wall-mounted ceramic, and Jim will be able to get in and get a tracking shot so you can see it protruding out of the wall. There's bits of wire, the sort of wire armature sticking out for the claws, but then she's got that fabulous profile of the barn owl, which has spotted some prey. We get that sort of sense of it in motion, with some really beautiful paintwork over it as well. So yeah, it's called Lost Habitat, which is obviously really quite fitting with various conservation themes running through it, and the kind of depletion of habitat around, seeing a lot of development around the town, and it brings up all sorts of questions and debates about how different local elements of biodiversity get displaced through that. And then up here we've got a piece by Helen Vaudry, really lovely pencil drawing. The teapot's nice to have some still life, bits of sticks of rock coming out of it, which I take as a kind of link with the strong local tourist economy that we've got here. Very bright, vibrant colours, set off very nicely by the black frame. But yeah, some really lovely drawing here, reflecting a window. It's one of those pieces that draws you in. It's almost like that very famous Van Eyck painting of with the mirror in the background. This bulbous sort of shape of the teapot really draws you in, and then you see a whole world reflected in it. Another really standout piece of the exhibition, Lorraine Udell's provoked a lot of conversations. Lorraine's got a background in mosaic making, so this piece with all of these roots, it's called Sustaining Unseen. These fabulous roots here depicted with these white bits of found ceramic. There's a mixture of different, there are bits of glass in here, ceramic tiles that she's broken up and assembled into this image, as well as some natural bits of slate and stone, which I believe she's sort of found out in the landscape and collected, mixed with those sort of more ready-made materials. And she's assembled them into this beautiful image of these tree roots. And I take the title to be a sort of comment on how those hidden aspects of plants, their root systems, how they sustain what you see above the surface. And it's just this piece that's really drawn people in, and sort of, I think, one that kind of commands people's attention for encouraging them to kind of figure out how the work was made and how everything's been very delicately slotted together. There's a lot of thought and consideration that goes into making something like this, because there's the assembling of it, there's the actual assembling of an image, and then there's the actual fixing it together and making it into something that can be hung on a wall and not fall to pieces. So yeah, it's a really lovely piece from Lorraine. We've got a piece here which kind of ties very nicely with some of these other kind of works with the darker palette from Joe Ford. It's a charcoal drawing, and it shows this kind of underworld sort of scene here with all these writhing sort of a bit intangible sort of forms. They don't quite resolve into anything. They're very kind of expressively drawn with charcoal, different kinds of chalks, some colour, some monochrome, but I thought it paired really quite nicely with, gets towards more sort of whimsical themes at this end of the wall, which is nice to have a little bit of the surreal there. Drawn in, because we've also got this collage piece. We've got collage represented in the exhibition. This is from Mike Jeffries, and it's called Hotspur Personally Oversees the Rescue of the Mammoths from the Sturega Tsunami. And my understanding is that that tsunami, for anybody that knows the area, was sort of played a role in the archaeological site at Hawksley, at Low Hawksley. The community there was wiped out by that, which it was the same tsunami that inundated Doggerland, so roughly about, I think, 10,000 years ago, but don't quote me on that. Jim's nodding behind the camera. So this piece, it shows this upside down mammoth, and then all of these sort of figures out of kind of 50s children's books. So it's a kind of real culture clash of different things in a very iconic Amble setting. It's fabulous. Another sort of piece that's provoked a lot of conversations. And it paired very nicely with this final piece. So we've seen Lorraine Duquemin's other two works. It paired really nicely with this painting by Lorraine of the quay. So it's the brand new Harbour Commissioners building, the fish shack, that local restaurant, very well known, and then the fishing boats, the fishing trawlers, and all of the activity that happens on the harbour, really nicely expressively painted in, and very thin acrylics, very thin washes. Paired with all these kind of vibrant daubs of colour. So it's a really nice, really dynamic piece from Lorraine. So we've got this piece here. We've got two columns against the windows, which we've picked out works that didn't quite fit into the sort of hang that we've done here. That works that sort of stood apart from that. Like I said, we couldn't accommodate. We've hung and singled out on these columns. First of these is a textile piece. So there's another textile piece alongside Ali Rowland's piece that we looked at earlier. It's by Brittany Fraser, and it's that iconic process of rag rugging, and anyone with maybe mining heritage in their families will know about. It's something that Brittany's done a lot of, and her sort of take on it, as well as incorporating sort of coastal imagery of a seagull. It has those elements and those themes of sustainability, because they're all recycled textiles. So there's bits of cleaning cloths, bits of towels, various household domestic items that you might find. There's also that kind of notion of domesticity and labour in the household that get drawn in through this, all pulled together into this really very, very charming piece. So this piece here, this next piece that we're looking at, is by Peter Drew. It's a wonderful collage, again another collage, and it's called Homage to Bauhaus / Memphis. So it's got a kind of link with art history, design history as well, the German design school, Bauhaus, and Memphis, which was an Italian breakaway from that, I understand from conversations with Peter. It's really formally very, very interesting piece, just with the various combinations that you'll have seen in the tracking shots that Jim's made, with all of those very graphic forms boxed into this very small window almost within the piece of paper that it's mounted on, with some really nice earth tones. Just a beautiful piece of formal collage that really kind of harkens back to all of those really interesting parts of our history and design history, but kind of brings it forward and kind of chews it all up and spits it back out, kind of thing. I love that about Peter's work, that he's always constantly going over our history and the various aspects of it, and sort of taking it, composting it, and combining it back together into these more finished pieces. So we've got another piece from Dorothy here. This is actually a drawing that she made on one of the workshops that we did as part of our Stronger Shores project last year. So we collaborated with Stronger Shores team, which were part of Durham Wildlife Trust, to raise local awareness about seagrass, the marine plant, which those of you who participated in that project will know about. It's got real carbon capture benefits, and there's actually a very small patch of it just north of Amble, which Stronger Shores did some research work around. And we ran a series of workshops to engage the local community with various aspects of how seagrass might benefit the local community. One of those things being sustaining local marine life populations, which can have a knock-on effect for supporting the local fishing industry. So we ran some workshops where we were drawing around the harbour, and this is one of Dorothy's drawings. So there's a nice link with the previous project that we've done of this drawing of Sarah Louise, a very iconic local fishing boat. So as I say, it's not all wall-based work. It's not all paintings in this exhibition. We do have a plinth in the gallery space, and we've got a piece on it by Samantha Folcarelli, who's an artist from Ashington. And it's a piece called Keep Your Noses Out, and I understand from discussing it with Samantha that it's her comment on new government legislation that came in that enabled HMRC to look through bank accounts of people that were on universal credit, and it was her sort of comment on that. And it's paper mache with some pig snouts painted in gold, and it's lined with bits of paper that say "My Business" on it, and then it's filled with some pennies at the bottom. And again, it's another conversation starter piece. And by this point in the exhibition, having gone through what I've gone through, you can get a sense of just how many different angles people have taken on the brief that we put out, and just the variety of different responses that we've had. And so here we have our very own Alexander Calder, Matthew Connolly, whom a lot of you will know from his work in the local community. He's never actually presented an artwork in an exhibition before, so he's another first timer. And it's a very pertinent piece for anybody from Amble who's followed the recent project by Amble Development Trust, who Matthew works for, to retain the old sports hall that's part of the current James Calvert Spence College complex. There's a community asset transfer application that was lodged with Northumberland County Council, which generated a lot of interest and controversy when it was declined by Northumberland County Council, who insisted on demolishing the building. Matthew was kind of the main proponent of that project, and he really led the case for that. So as a kind of a bit of protest on his part, he's taken the business case, taken the application form that we all worked on, and he has combined it with a armature that hangs from the ceiling, which is backlit by one of the lights in the gallery space, and that is the shape of the River Coquet. And then we've got all of these houses that are comprised out of the business case that he's co-opted, and he's called it Sold Down the River, because I think Matthew's of the view that there's the potential for that land to become housing. I wouldn't want to comment on that, but it's certainly, again, provoked a lot of conversations in the gallery space, and it's been nice to have a sculptural piece that isn't mounted on a plinth or mounted on a wall. It's gave me and Jim a technical challenge as to how we accommodate it in the gallery space. But like I say, just certainly continued to add to and underline the variety of work that we've got on show here. We're now on to the final wall in the gallery space. This wall here, this was really kind of pulled it. This was the first wall to pull itself together when we were assembling all of the works. All of the works bound by the colour palette of those teals and purples and reds. So I'll work from this side across. And in the top corner there, up in the left, we've got rural communities represented well through Anthea Wood from Wooler, of some young farmers there, young boy and a girl tending to a flock of sheep. Fabulous bit of brushwork there, the way that she's captured the light coming through the side of the barn that those sheep are in, and the shadows across the back of the sheep. Just a fabulous bit of paintwork. And Anthea's got another piece here of a signal box up on the way towards Wooler in rural Northumberland. And again, it just shows her real deftness with the paintbrush, the brushwork, and the sort of colour control that she's got of bringing out some fabulous violets and purples and all those shadows. And yeah, it's nice to have the urban, the rural, the coastal all represented through this exhibition, showing all the various aspects of our local area in terms of the vernacular and the different kinds of ways of life that we see in Northumberland. And then we've got Catherine Rouslange, a car park piece from her. I believe she's updated the title because it reflects the increased parking charges that we see. I believe it used to be called Beadnell Car Park, now 3 hours, £6.50, and she's updated it. It's now £7 to park at Beadnell. So it's a very tongue-in-cheek comment on the way that communities can become priced out of their own local areas of a spot that Catherine knows well, and she's talks quite often about holidaying up the coastline with her parents, who were both artists, and how much change she's seen in her lifetime. So it's a fabulous piece of painting there, with those really typical coastal colour palette of those stark light that you see, with all the kind of colours that almost vibrate through a sort of clear spring winter sort of sky that you see on the coastline, with that flat horizon, and then all of those different colours that you see in wet cement, wet concrete, and tarmac, of all of those different colours that make up a chromatic grey. And underneath that, piece from Iona Heaton. It's a watercolour piece of these two figures on a slightly magical sort of fantasy feeling coastline, but she talks about making links with the aspects of the law that require you to measure your distance from the tide line when foraging along the coast. So again, linking with some of the other works that we've seen, those aspects of sustainability and self-reliance, and who can utilise the coastline and the fruits of things like that. So really interesting piece, contrasted with a fishing trawler from Ant Beale. Again, a bit like Dorothy, Ant doesn't really need an introduction to those of you that know him. It's been really nice to have Ant's work in this exhibition, because Ant actually got back into artwork by coming and seeing the original Dovecote Street Show exhibition 3 years ago that Jim and myself organised. He was really taken by some of the artworks on display, and he got back into painting and has been tutored, and he's churning out these fantastic pieces now that are really symbolic of the local area, and he's captured in these three pieces. So this one, this piece here, so that one's called Aquarius 2, which is the fishing trawler that he's depicted, and then we've got Little Harbour and Safe Harbour. He's really captured the Amble Harbour really bloody well. It's got a real, you can tell that he's somebody that knows and understands just how boats sit on the water, all of those kinds of things that come from long-term observation, from being from an area and being of an area. So we're really pleased to have Ant featured. We've got two collages, more collages in the exhibition. These are from Cathy Greenhalgh, who is a regular of our crits, and she's also the founder and the facilitator of the Amble Collage Collective. So she's got this piece here called Operation Raise the Flag. So you can see some sort of broken St George's flags in there, kind of passing comment on all of the flag raising controversy that we've seen, flags being mounted on lampposts and things like that. And then one that's Girls Say No, which is a link with dolls that I think she photographed on the quayside car boot in Amble, contrasted with a piece of textile work to do with Green Common and the kind of controversy, anti-nuclear protests there. So they form really nice bridges. I'm really pleased with how this all came together. They're nice bridges between these various artworks, of just the way that the figure in Anthea's piece in the corner reflects the figures there, the way that the various reds kind of reverb through. It seemed to have a nice kind of rhythm, this wall, when we put it together. And then we've got a nice semi-abstract abstract piece here from Linda Wilcox. Really dynamic brushwork. What's really drawn me to this piece, I like Linda's use of black. Black's a very difficult colour to make work in paintings, and I think a lot of painters are divided about utilising black or not. But I think Linda's done it really, really well in this piece, and it doesn't detract from the bright magentas and the blues and the turquoises in her painting. The black kind of gives it a real graphic structure. So it's a lovely piece there. And then we've got two, they're mixed media pieces. They're a combination of collage and painting by Tracy Aitken, who uses gouache and the sort of book pages to make these very iconic garages. My father's side of the family are from Stakeford, just past Ashington, and I always remember visiting the house there that belonged to his family, of the split back lane. If you would have a colliery row, and then there was a back lane, a garage, and then a long strip of garden. It's very common around any pit villages to have that style of garden, and it really kind of struck a familial note for me of just a childhood memory. So I thought that was really lovely. And then this is Ted Taylor's other piece, hung next to Sarah Bradford's work, of showing, it's been really interesting to see how certain pieces have been very reflective and have kind of given, cause for pausing a little bit and considering what the artist's intent was. Other pieces have offered a more hopeful note, a more optimistic note. And what I quite like about this is Sarah's piece is titled Peace, Perfect Peace. That's her commenting, I think, on the state of the world, the massive upheaval we're seeing in terms of the displacement of various peoples across the world, war breaking out. It feels like, this constant barrage of bad news that we constantly see. So it's kind of Sarah offering a note of peace, and then Ted very optimistically titled his piece The Apocalypse. And it's a lot of people have said that's Ted, but anybody that knows Ted well knows that he's got a very broad artistic practice that incorporates sculpture, drawing, painting, printmaking, all sorts of different things into his practice that he's tried his hand at over the years. He's very, very technically accomplished artist, and very professionally accomplished artist that has many, many different facets, so people just might not be familiar of this more abstract side to Ted. But it was really good to have it in the exhibition, because it formed a nice sort of centerpiece for this wall, because it sort of, like I say, that colour palette and those reds and those deep indigos and violets combined through that piece with those. There's some really interesting sort of fluorescent reds that sort of flicker on those forms there. It's almost, there's so many different reads of that piece that you could make. They almost look like prominences on the sun, the solar flares, or I think he said the Martians. He's had all sorts of different stories that he's told me. I think every time I saw him when he was telling me about this, he told me a different story about what had inspired it. But it's really great to have something very striking, and again, a bit like Andrew Holder's piece that sparked a lot of conversations. So these are the final two pieces that I'm going to talk about, and the top one, so Anthea Wood, whose pieces that we've just looked at. This is her third piece, slightly larger than the other two, which were square format. This is a portrait format piece, a Blawery, a ruin up north of Alnwick, between sort of Alnwick and Wooler, an oil painting on canvas by her, and then it's juxtaposed with this photograph by Ian Bolton. And what I really liked about these two is just the way that they sort of jarred in terms of their urban and rural settings, but actually the colour palette was very close in them, of those kinds of browns and greens, and the kind of the natural greens of the grasses and the sort of very artificial greens on Ashington High Street. I really like that combination, and there's sort of some echoes in terms of the forms of some of the trees, the winter trees here in Ashington, and some of the grasses that Anthea's painted, and anybody, I've been testing the various groups that have come in to see whether they pick up on the art historical reference that's inherent in Ian's piece, and the title is Arrangement in Blonde and Leopard Print #1, Someone's Mother, which is of course a riff on Arrangement in Black and Grey, which is more commonly known as Whistler's Mother. So I thought it was very kind of tongue-in-cheek, as it often is with Ian's work. But it's a really beautiful photograph. It's quite poignant in a way. A lot of people have really been drawn to this piece, you know, because it's very, very iconic. Like I say, my father's side of the family were from Stakeford, so I spent a lot of my childhood on Ashington High Street after we'd been visiting them, going to the shops there, and I've seen just how much it's changed in recent years, but it's really nice to see it depicted by somebody from Ashington who knows it so intimately. So yeah, they make a really nice pair, and it's really nice to see the urban and the rural aspects of our county juxtaposed together.
Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Hopefully none of the artists are going to attack Luke for what he said about their work. But we'd also like to say thank you. Who would we like to say thank you to, Luke?
We would like to say, firstly, thank you to all of the artists. Secondly, thank you to all of you that have come and visited. Thirdly, a big thanks to all of you that have bought work, because we've sold nearly a third of the work to the exhibition. But we do want to say thank you especially to the Almouth Arts Festival Committee, who gave us a grant of £400, which has helped us help the exhibition watch its space, helped us cover the core costs of the exhibition. We had a fabulous private view. Really grateful to County Councillor Wendy Patterson, who is Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure and Tourism for Northumberland County Council, who came along and opened it, along with the Lord Lieutenant of the county, Caroline Pryor. So we had a wonderful private view thanks to the Almouth Arts Festival, and it's also covered the various costs like fixtures and fittings and the printing costs that come associated with this. So as Jim said, I hope any of the artists that are watching this don't kill me for the things that I've said about their work. It has all been off the cuff. It's been totally unscripted, but we thought it would kind of hopefully bring to life some of the stories that are behind all of the works, and give you a bit of a deeper look into the exhibition that is Amble, Northumberland, England. So is there anything else that you want to say now that I've dragged you out from behind the camera?
No, thank you.